Okay, in this next video, we're going to discuss why the holiday of Sukkot is in the fall. So we begin this discussion with the same source in the tour that we did before, but in order to understand what's bothering the tour and everyone else, we have to remember that all of our holidays, the three regalim, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, they all commemorate historical events, but in the case of Pesach, it's a specific event, the day or days in which we left Egypt. And so it's obvious why it's on the 15th of Nisan, because that was the night that Makat B'chorot came when we left the next morning. It's obvious why Shavuot always falls out in our calendar in the 6th of Sivan. Once upon a time, before we had a fixed calendar, it could have also been the 5th or 7th of Sivan. We always know why it's around the 6th of Sivan, because according to tradition, that's when we received the Torah, 50 days after we left Egypt. But Hashem protecting us in the desert, whether you speak of the Ananei HaKavod or the other view, Rabbi Akiva's view of Sukkot Mamash, either way, that was an ongoing thing throughout 40 years. So how do you pick a certain date or a certain bunch of dates within the year to commemorate that? There's no obvious reason to say it should be in the fall more so than the winter or spring. So the tour is bothered by this. He says, even though we left Egypt in Nisan, right, not in Tishrei when you have the holiday, the Torah didn't command us to make a sukkah at that time, Nisan time. That would be pretty rough if the Torah did, because then we'd be like having our Seder in a sukkah. But it didn't do that because it's called Kayetz, which today means summer, but here he means spring and summer. He means the warm season. Lots of people put out all types of gazebos and awnings and set up their deck nicely. Lots of people, when things get warm in the spring and summer, go out to their backyards and their decks and their local parks to have barbecues and to eat outside and enjoy a nice evening out on their lawn. And so it would not be nikeret, it wouldn't have been recognizable to anybody that we're doing this because it's the mitzvah of our Creator. That if somebody saw you going out to your sukkah to have a Yom Tov meal there in April or May, they'd say, oh, Fraser, why is he doing that? It's not because he's a rabbi and he wants to do a mitzvah in his religion. He probably decided it's a good night to eat out on his deck because the weather's getting nice out. Maybe we should do a barbecue too in our deck. And so instead, the Torah said no. The Torah commanded us to do this on the 7th month, that's the month of Tishrei. That's when the rainy season begins. If anyone's ever been to Israel, it actually depends when Sukkot falls out. In the year when Sukkot's early, it's beautiful weather in Israel. Then if you have the bad luck of going to Israel for Sukkot in the year coming off a Jewish leap year, like it's going to happen in Tavshin Pei, if that's your luck, when Sukkot's a little bit later and the rainy season's starting, you can have a Sukkot where the wind blows your schach off and it rains every other day. And the Torah says, that's the point. As it's getting a little colder and a little windier, and all the normal people who had lots of barbecues on their deck throughout the summer are bringing in their gazebo and their awning, and they're bringing in their barbecue and bringing in their patio furniture. Right as they're doing that, that's when we go out of our house, bring out our patio furniture, bring out our canvas walls, and build our Sukkot. And at that point, we go out of our house to dwell in the sukkah. Through that, the person who goes to his sukkah shows everyone, to demonstrate to others that it's a mitzvah of the king, Hashem. That's why we're in our sukkah. We're not in our sukkah because it's nice weather and fun and pleasant. We're going into a sukkah precisely at the moment when the going gets tough, and most people would not want to be outside. So the tour, that's why we dwell in a sukkah that time of year. The Bach in the previous video. Along comes the Ramban, and the Ramban is a little bit concerned over here. And I mentioned in class, we say along comes the Ramban after the tour. The Ramban actually was older. The Ramban lived before the tour. And so if you read these two texts carefully, you can actually see that the Tur knew the Ramban when he wrote his comments and not the reverse. But logically, I think that what the Tur said is the best known reason, so we decided to put that reason first. The idea that you want to go out to the sukkah when everyone else is coming into their house after the summer. And now we see a different perspective from the Ramban. Ramban tells us that, Rashi quoted the Midrash, the Sukkot Ananei Kavod, and Ramban likes that. Right, I agree that the simple meaning of Sukkot here is the clouds of glory. Why? Because why would we get a mitzvah like this to build Sukkot? I think what's bothering the Ramban is there are lots of things Hashem did for us in the Midbar. He didn't command us to put on special clothes just because we had clothes in the Midbar. He didn't command us to wear special shoes just because Hashem provided them with shoes in the Midbar. So why single out Sukkot from anything else? Right? If it's just that he provided us with, the materials to build schach or build walls, why is that different than any of the other basic necessities he provided with us? But if it commemorates the Ananei HaKavod, we understand that was an unbelievable miracle. These special clouds only experienced at that time, and so that's why Hashem commanded us to remember for all generations Ma'aseh Hashem Hagadol, the great thing Hashem did. Hashem Lahafli, this wondrous thing, this Pella Hashem did for us, that He settled us inside the protection of His clouds of glory, like a sukkah, like a shelter. And Ramban quotes Yeshayahu over here, where Yeshayahu says, Yeshayahu is talking about a future redemption, and that Hashem is going to redeem us in the future. He's going to create this thing on Har Tzion, that's Har Habayit in Jerusalem, Anan Yomam va'ashan, cloud in the daytime and smoke, v'noga esh, this flash of fiery lahava flames, Laila at night, Kel kavod chuppah, because there's going to be a chuppah. Chuppah just means here a covering, right? The chuppah at a wedding is the canopy. This covering or canopy protecting us, v'sukkah tiyel etzel yomam mechorev, and it'll be like a sukkah in the daytime to provide shade from the chorev means dryness, but in context means dry heat of the sun. So Yeshayahu here is not actually talking about Yetziat Mitzrayim directly. He's talking about a future redemption. But the way he describes the future redemption is going to be as great as when Hashem took us out of Egypt. Just like when we left Egypt, so too in the future Hashem is going to protect us with protection of clouds and smoke and fire. Those are all the things He protected us with leaving Egypt, right? The Amud Ha'esh and the Amud Anan. The pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud. And that's how Hashem is going to protect us, and it's going to be like a sukkah. So over here in Yeshayahu, the word sukkah does not literally mean, is not used for its literal meaning of a hut. The sukkah is explaining, sort of metaphorically, the value of Hashem's cloud of glory and His fire. That Hashem is going to protect us with His cloud of glory, His Anan HaKavod, and His smoke and fire, His Ashan, His Noga Esh Lahava, like physical shelter. Those are going to be effective in protecting us like the way that a tent or a cabin or a shack would protect us. And so I think what Ramban's saying here, he's explaining how this is pshat. Right? We might say, what do you mean pshat? How could pshat in the word hut be cloud? It means hut, it doesn't mean cloud. Ramban's saying, no, if you look in Yeshayahu, when Yeshayahu talks about Hashem redeeming us in the future with clouds and fire, he's borrowing imagery from Yetziat Mitzrayim. Hashem's going to protect us in the future just like He did when we left Egypt. And when we left Egypt, He gave us Anan Yomam, Ashan v'noga esh lahava laila, and it was like a sukkah. And so you see over there that Yeshayahu uses the word sukkah describing our protection, but it's obviously a metaphor for the Anan, Ashan, Noga esh lahava. And Yeshayahu might be hinting to the fact that if you look back in the Chumash from before his time, when the Chumash talks about Hashem protecting us with Sukkot on the way out of Egypt, that's also a metaphor for Anan Yomam v'Ashan v'Noga Esh Lahava. Okay, so Ramban says the Torah here, just like Yeshayahu, is using Sukkah as a metaphor for Hashem's clouds of glory. that still begs the question, why now? Why not do it in the spring or the summer or the winter? So Ramban, like the tour after him, recognizes the most obvious time that we might think of to do it is in Nisan, because that's when we left Egypt. But then it would conflict with Pesach. So says Ramban, Hine tiva b'tchilat yimot hachama, b'zichron yetziat Mitzrayim b'chodsho v'moado. Hashem commanded at the beginning of the warm season that we remember Yetziat Mitzrayim in its appropriate month and time. In other words, Hashem commanded us already to observe Pesach then. We already have a holiday, b'tchilat yimot hachama, in the springtime when it starts getting warm, to remember Yetziat Mitzrayim. That holiday is called Pesach. We have that already. And that's for the basic idea that we left Egypt. And so in addition to that, Tziva b'zichron hanes hakayam, anas elahem kol yemei amidatam b'midbar. In addition to that, Hashem commanded a separate holiday to remember the miracle that was ongoing, kayam, it kept on going, that was done to them, kol yemei amidatam b'midbar, throughout their time in the midbar. He had us do that in the rainy season, in the fall. Now, looking at that Ramban, you might be partially but not fully satisfied. Ramban gave a very compelling case here for why we can't keep Sukkot in the spring at the time that we left Egypt, because we already have another holiday to commemorate that one-time event, and this is supposed to be a different holiday about the ongoing support that went on for 40 years. But Ramban doesn't really explain in a compelling way in this line why it has to be B'tchilat Yimot HaGeshamim. Why couldn't it be in July or November as opposed to September, October when Sukkot falls out? So that's why we suggested in class that the Tur, who lived a little bit after the Ramban, might have been thinking about that when the Tur gave his answer. Right? He begins, like Ramban, with mentioning first we left Egypt in Nisan, he knows we have a holiday then, and Sukkot's in the Zman HaGeshamim. A lot of his language here parallels the language in the Ramban. But the Tur added a reason why it's dafka right when the weather's starting to get cold. Right? So that people will recognize that we're doing a mitzvah act to serve Hashem. Right? If we kept Sukkot in July, so it would still meet Ramban's criteria of being a separate holiday from Pesach, but it wouldn't show people we're doing it for a mitzvah. If we did it in January or February, then that would just be really rough on us. We wouldn't even enjoy the holiday. It would be so cold out. And so the Tur is kind of building on Ramban's point that we need a separate time apart from Pesach to observe a holiday for Hashem's ongoing care of us for 40 years. But the Tur, unlike the Ramban, gives a really good reason for why it's dafka in the fall. Then comes Ramban B. Ramban says, what about that other view, Rabbi Akiva, who said Sukkot Mamash? If it's really a holiday about physical huts that Hashem gave us in the Midbar, then I understand why it's dafka when it starts getting cold, because historically they would have built those huts b'tchilat hachoref mipnei hakor. At the beginning of the choref, again, the choref doesn't just mean winter in ancient Hebrew, it means the whole rainy season, cold season. So they began doing it in the cold season because of the core, the cold. That's what people do, says Ramban, right? In this middle of summer, you might be comfortable sleeping outdoors in just a sleeping bag under the stars. Then as it gets colder, you need a tent or a cabin or something to protect you. So that time that we have Sukkot, around Tishrei, that's when these people who were blessed with supplies for Sukkot by the grace of God, that's when they would have actually built their Sukkot. And that's why he would have commanded us at that time to build the Sukkot. So Ramban really gives two reasons here, depending on whether you think Sukkot or Sukkot Mamash, which is the view he prefers, in which case he explains why it's not in Nisan, but his explanation for why it's in the rainy season is not all that convincing. And so the Tur built on that view and explained why there's particular power to going out into your sukkah at the start of the rainy season when all your non-Jewish neighbors are bringing their stuff into their house. Whereas, says Ramban, if we go by the idea of Sukkot Mamash, then we're commemorating a historical event that actually did take place specifically in Tishrei. Because even if Hashem gave them supplies for a sukkah throughout the 40 years, they only really started to use them when it got cold.